name is Reilly-Boccia, and I'm here to talk today about how to reinforce great hand path to the ball and through the ball to increase consistency in a hitter. The first drill we're going to talk about really isolates the lower half. We talk about in hitting how our upper half can't go anywhere without our lower half. A lot of times, whatever our lower half is doing, our upper half will follow. So in order to enforce proper hand path, we have to make sure that our torso is in the correct position, and in order to do that, we have to make sure our lower half is in the correct position as well. To set up for this drill, we're going to get a slightly wider stance than what we normally would. We don't want to be too uncomfortably wide. We just want to be at a point where the hitter does not feel like they can move their lower half at all. We want to isolate the lower half. The next step is extremely important. We want to make sure we get into a good position of where our lower half should look like at contact with the ball. A lot of times hitters, especially hitters who may have a difficulty with strength, are going to want to sit and spin and just sit back on all of their toes, kind of like squishing the bug. However, especially as a female athlete, we need to make sure that we are driving our backside into a strong front side. In order to have a strong front side, we need great tilt. In order to have a strong backside, we need to make sure we have a lot of linear momentum that's being generated from our lower half, not as much rotational momentum. So, the first coaching cue I give a lot of hitters is to put pressure on the back big toe. Automatically, just by putting pressure, as you can tell, my knee begins to drive towards my front knee. Next, I instruct to have a high heel. By doing so, we should automatically start to see a slight discomfort in the hitter. This should almost feel like a lunge. We are going to activate our quad, our hamstring, our glute, a lot of the major muscles that are used in generating momentum from the ground into our body and into the ball. Lastly, we want to make sure our hips are still closed. We want to hit from a closed hip position because if our hips begin to open up too soon, automatically my torso begins to rotate, my shoulder will begin to rotate, and lastly, my hands and my head will pull off the ball. That's no position we want to be at contact. At contact, we want to make sure we're in a position to get our eyes, our head, everything down at the ball. So again, set up for this drill, wider, slightly wider than we normally would, pressure on the big toe, heel high. We want to make sure our hips stay closed as we drive that back knee towards our front knee. Our pinky toe and our second to last toe really shouldn't have much pressure on it. We should really be emphasizing driving forward, not sitting and spinning backwards. Also, our front side should be strong. We should have a great tilt, which means good angle with the ground. We should not have our front side too far bent, but we also shouldn't have our front leg completely locked out. Just because our front side is straight does not signify that it's strong. A strong front side signifies a slight bend in the leg. Once we get to this position here, our hips are closed, heel high, knee driving to the front. From here, we can get into a good position to focus in on a pitcher. This entails getting both our eyes focused towards the direction of the pitcher. Once we get there, all we're working on is having great hands through the zone. We want to make sure we keep our hands between the batter and the ball. From this angle here, if I were to hit straight into the camera, I would want to make sure my hands did not come too close so that they hit my body, but also not too far out where they're going to run into the ball. We want to keep our hands between the ball and our body. We're going to try to drive that knob in a straight line in the direction we want that ball to go. Our bat is going to fall into place, and we're going to eventually end up with our bat whipping through the zone. Contact will be made with palm up, palm down, and we have a strong power L. Being able to keep our hands tight, close to our body, inside the ball, is going to ensure a proper upper body form at contact. So, for this drill, we set up, pressure on the big toe, high heel, hips closed. We check in, and all we're working on is nice and smooth hands. I try to get my hitters, and when I played myself, I tried to reinforce in my head that this was not a power drill. This was strictly a form drill. So when we hit off the tee with this drill, we're not trying to hit it as hard as we can. We're trying to stay centered and maintain dynamic balance. which means as we hit our nose, our belly button, and the distance between our 2 feet should remain even. If we have too much movement this way, or this way, we begin to leak our power. Proper form, proper technique, and especially great hand path to the ball and through the ball are going to be the foundation for providing power and speed and quickness into our swing. This has been Cassie Reilly-Boccia explaining the high heel drill and how it helps with enforcing great hand path to the ball.